back to Pass the Balance Sheet. Today, we're stepping out of the finance realm and into the human resources. Human resources is often misunderstood as paperwork, policies, and hiring, but at its core, HR is about people, power, safety, accountability, and culture. Today, we're talking about the side of human resources that doesn't always make it into the employee handbook. We're talking about toxic work environments, sexual harassment, bullying, retaliation, favoritism, burnout, discrimination, and the fear people have when they know something is wrong but don't know if speaking up will cost them their job. HR is not just about compliance, it's about whether people feel safe, respected, and protected at work. Let's dig in. So, today I usually say this is one of my favorite topics. This actually isn't really one of my favorite topics, but it is something that needs to be talked about because everyone deals with it. And so here we are. So today we're talking about the misconception that HR is only there to protect the company. I think that misconception is there because a majority of companies have not great HR. A good HR will function in a way that it protects the company by protecting its people, creating fair processes, documenting issues, enforcing standards, and ensuring that leaders are held accountable. Um, and so really what we want to touch on in a gamut of different kind of subtopics is that a healthy workplace does not happen by accident. It has to be built, it has to be monitored, and it has to be corrected when something is not going the way that it should be. So really righting the wrongs. The first thing that kind of comes to mind, and we've talked about this on so many podcasts in so many different types of topics, but workplace toxicity or toxic work environments. And they typically start with one person, and I'll just call it the cancer. If you don't remove the cancer just ends up spreading to a point of like no return. So, um, I'll let you jump in there because I know you have like some meat and potatoes here, but toxic work environments is where we're starting with this subject.
Yeah, so I have worked in my fair share of toxic work environments, as we have all,
Mhm.
and will probably continue navigating certain bits and pieces of it throughout my life because it's a part of everyday business. But how? Like, I want to talk about some ways that that toxicity shows up in, like, how do you feel it? And so
Mhm.
I'm going to talk about some of my past experiences, of some signs of, like, what are people doing that are signs of toxicity. So, gossip, is the first one,
Mhm.
where people are not aligned. Well, first of all, um, if you have gossip in general, that tells me you have people who are not, who have too much time on their hands. But
Mhm.
anyway, gossip really implies that you're not aligned. A part of the team is not aligned with another part of the team.
Yeah.
Maybe there are cliques, maybe it's favoritism from top up, and certain people are favorites and everybody else doesn't have a chance. But gossip is one of the flags that signals that there's some sort of, like, what's the word, like, imbalance
Mhm.
somewhere, or a perception of imbalance. Humiliation, this one is, like, I am upset at how many times I have witnessed this from execs. So this, in my opinion, only happens with execs who really don't have a true leadership experience, and they
Mhm.
only know how to lead by fear. They're like, well, I'm gonna wing it because that's how I've always done my life, and I'm just gonna shame people into compliance, submission,
Mhm.
whatever the heck it is. And I remember, man, I've seen it play out so many times, but um, when when I see a obviously you have fire operational fires to put out every day in a business,
Mhm.
right? Like that's what a lot of COOs, CEOs have to deal with is like something happened. Okay, like now it's escalated up. Now we're solving
Mhm.
problems. Like, um, and so obviously, like we're shit will hit the fan. Problems will happen. From my perspective, I have always found that problems arise not because of like some specific person. Yes, they might have happened under somebody's watch
Mhm.
specifically, but what I see is like there's a broken process, or maybe there's an absence of a process. And so like things happen because we've never encountered this way of, something unusual happened, and that's how it played out because we haven't had a baseline or a handbook or anything else to guide us out of this, right? And so a good leader will take the blame out of it and really try to understand what happened, what can we learn from it, how can we move on. But where I see this, where the toxicity is played out, is where it's not about solving the problem. It's about pointing the fingers and blaming and hoping that the well, they'll never do that again because well, now they know how they, But
Mhm.
what's the most disgusting part about this is like, when this shame happens in front of others, like, okay, it's one thing to have your a new one ripped to you by your
Mhm.
boss, in a one-on-one, but it's a whole other unproductive thing when you're now shaming, you're making an example of one person and
Mhm.
showing the rest of the team like this is what's going to happen to you if you make a mistake as well. And so yes, humiliation, we talked shortly about favorites, where people feel excluded, employees being afraid to ask questions or speak up. This one I've seen my entire life. And as I mentioned, I was a part of the problem where I would be afraid to speak up. And it was really more about like the unethical things that
Mhm.
I saw. But knowing that you're in an environment where either your complaint is not going to be taken seriously, or now there's light being
Mhm.
you that you are making something a problem. So I definitely see the continuation of the misery because people are afraid to speak up.
I I mean, I've seen this so often in business where people like I've walked into businesses where they're afraid to ask questions. And I just don't understand. I don't understand how you can allow something to get to that point, or how, I mean, to be completely frank, like how does your ego get that big to think that you can't hear like a different perspective or like a different opinion? So I just don't understand that. And I think I come from that place uh because of the humble beginnings. Like when I came in as an executive assistant to a CFO, there was nothing off limits. Like, I was never treated as an executive assistant. She treated me as if I was her equal. If I wanted to
Mhm,
know something, she was willing to bring me along the process. If I wanted to learn something, she would freely let me learn it. There was not this like intimidation factor or scarcity mindset. I think that was so important for me because what I saw was there was room for both of us at the table. And ultimately, when she decided to leave on her own accord for personal reasons, I was groomed into that role naturally.
mhm,
But then it also instilled in me that because because she sat as the CFO for as long as she wanted to or as long as she did, and never said like that's not your responsibility or that's not within your realm or whatever. I never felt scarcity. And so when people came
mhm,
along in my department that I was able to steward and they wanted to learn, I was able to put myself in their shoes, and they genuinely just want to learn something. They're not here to
mhm,
steal my job. Maybe they are. Maybe that's naive thinking on my part, but I always looked at it as an opportunity for them to learn and grow. And And so I never understood leaders that weren't open to hearing questions or weren't like totally didn't feel the reward of seeing someone that they were stewarding succeed, because
Mhm.
some of
Mhm.
my favorite moments to look back on are seeing people that I was able to lead grow into bigger shoes. And
Mhm. Mhm.
I have one just recently that she started a new role. She's sitting as a controller. Like, I brought her in as a bookkeeper, and now she's controlling like a multi-million dollar company. And it's just like that is the fruits of your labor. Like, that is
Mhm.
so rewarding, and how you can't see that, I just don't understand it. The humiliation side of things, I mean, I have experienced it. I've been a victim of being humiliated. I feel like I have tough
Mhm.
skin, so I was able to, like, handle it well in the situation and then kind
Mhm.
of shatter to pieces in the background. But
Mhm.
to humiliate someone is just cruel. Like, I don't
Mhm.
understand. Like, I'm sure that I have hurt people's feelings. I'm sure that I've accidentally humiliated someone, but to intentionally humiliate someone, I don't understand it, but I have witnessed it. Like, I've
Mhm.
seen the kind of build up to someone being publicly humiliated at a board table or in a meeting, and I don't understand how someone could do that to someone.
Yeah.
So, I
But it
don't.
happens and it gets uncomfortable. And I recommend, if any of our listeners are ever in that position, um, I I always watch other podcasts for recommendations of how to be stronger in these situations and how to be stoic in these situations, like how to keep your cool,
Mhm.
but then have but basically interject, have stand up for what's right, but just in a very uh quiet but powerful way. I I'm not a natural at this, but so I always look for recommendations. But if you have ever been, any of our listeners kind of in that position, I recommend, and I've never had the balls to do it in the in the moment, but I totally fantasize about doing it. So next time it happens, I will. But calling it out in the moment, and but saying like, uh, did you mean to, or either asking them to repeat what
Mhm.
they just said, because most of the time they won't. They'll feel stupid doing it. And or secondly, clarifying, like, did you mean to come across, in whatever way? And that also again kind of puts the mirror in front of their face. And if there are others present, then they kind of are like, oh, get uncomfortable. I only learn about these things in concept and from other very powerful leaders. I never, like, in that moment, I'm always like shocked. And only after some debriefing time do I ever like come back and say like, hey, I'm not okay standing behind this or whatever. But
Mhm.
I can use all the help that I can get in the moment of.
Yeah, and I think
Let's.
something else that's super important on humiliation that maybe you've seen it. I I have witnessed it and I've seen the leader call it out as accountability. And so, something for our listeners, like seeing a leader humiliate someone, it tells you so much about the culture and
Mhm.
the leader. And there
Yeah.
is a very clear difference between accountability and humiliation. Accountability addresses the behavior, the mistakes, or like a missed expectation, if you will.
Mhm.
Humiliation attacks the person. And when a
Mhm.
leader chooses to embarrass someone publicly or talk
Mhm.
down to them, make them feel small, or use their authority to shame them, it doesn't
Mhm.
create excellence. It creates fear, which we've talked about just on the last one. And the damage is bigger than that one moment. like everyone watching is learning
Mhm.
something. They're learning
Mhm.
whether it's safe to make mistakes, like you said.
Mhm.
They're learning whether honesty will be punished. They learn whether
Mhm.
leadership is there to develop people or to dominate them. And from a business standpoint, humiliation is expensive, which may be kind of the segue into this next piece, but it erodes trust. It increases turnover. We've talked about the cost of turnover before.
Yeah.
It silences communication. It makes good people start planning their exit. And I'm seeing that
Mhm.
happen actually right now in one of the companies that I'm advising on. A
Mhm.
humiliated employee may keep showing up like physically, but mentally and emotionally, they may have already be gone. They may
Mhm.
already be gone. And we talked about this in the COVID area of like quiet quitting. This is a
Mhm.
perfect example of quiet
Mhm.
quitting. And so
Yeah.
strong leaders, I also want them to hear that you can coach, you can correct, you can hold high standards without stripping someone of their dignity. And the goal of leadership should be to improve, not
Mhm.
embarrass.
Mhm. Another thing, excellent point, and another takeaway for the leaders who are truly trying to keep people accountable, but doing it in a way that is fair. Like one,
Mhm.
I brought up this psycho client that I had a couple of years ago, that we kind of ended up firing each other because it was it got bad, and
I like your pictures like, you're fired. No, you're fired. No, I fired you first.
it wasn't quite like that, but, um,
An amicable separation.
an
An
unamicable
amicable
separation.
separation.
Um, but, in any case, one thing that I witnessed, like, when I was replacing, another CFO that was underperforming
Mhm.
and all of that stuff, but I was on site one time. I had to fly physically to this client quarterly, and I was on site and I was cleaning out that previous guy's office, and I was looking through all of his documents and like what do I need to keep versus not. And I saw these emails of like how before he got fired, how the accountability was trying to be addressed with
Mhm.
this leader. And I was just baffled at the questions. Like talk about blaming. It was like a list of all of his F ups, but the question was, um, why did you decide to, you know, why? It was like, it phrased everything like all of his errors were on purpose. Why did you send this report that had missing things? Why did you blah, blah, blah? And it basically like, I can't imagine how that guy, had to answer these things because, like, one of the things that you have to think about when you're trying to, approach with the accountability lens, right? Like, you really need to first ask, like, have I given this leader that I'm chewing out, have I given them all the tools to succeed? Like, it's not always a like everything went wrong because of you, you
Mhm.
know? And the other person, if you're willing to listen, you might learn like, well, I didn't have all of these resources, or I thought that blah 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 because of the standard that was set in this place. Like, but not giving any sort of when that accountability card gets thrown out, I just want to challenge the leaders like definitely you want to hold your employees, your contractors, everybody accountable, but we've talked about this in past conversations. You set a very, very clear baseline of how you're measuring, that success or that
Mhm.
performance of that contact, and so you really wanna be more in the problem solving approach rather than the blame approach really to anything, but anyway, that just kinda
Mhm.
came up as a kind of humiliation, but also, like, nonsensical questions like, "Yeah, like, this guy did all of these things on purpose," you know?
Yeah.
Like, I clearly saw that he didn't really know what he had to do. That was the clear, like, that was where I feel like he failed. But all of these, detailed, it just seemed like it was more to spite him than to really resolve the the problem.
Mhm.
But anyway, let's move on to a very uncomfortable topic of sexual harassment. And
Yay.
yes.
This one is, like, difficult for me because for a woman in business, especially a woman in, like, leadership, it's a deeply personal topic because we know how hard, like, it can be to earn respect in rooms where, you know, competence should be the only thing being evaluated.
Mhm, mhm,
Um, and when harassment is tolerated or even innuendoed, it sends messages that women are expected to absorb the discomfort for the sake of keeping peace. But on the flip side, we're in this weird paradigm um of the Me Too movement. And
mhm,
I ride this fine line because I am definitely pro woman and I just said it. I couldn't have said it better than we should only be evaluated on our competence.
mhm,
And I think some of the Me Too movement has been abused in the fact that maybe some women didn't get what they wanted or didn't get what they felt like they deserved,
mhm,
and
mhm,
they use some of these claims, and
mhm,
that's also not fair too. And so I
mhm,
want to
mhm,
be very mindful that we are two women talking about this,
mhm,
and I
mhm,
have experienced it. I am not one that would tolerate it. But I also want to be mindful of any men that may be listening to this and
mhm,
want
mhm.
to have grace and empathy for the possibility of abuse when it comes to this sexual harassment claim.
Yeah, you touched on, man, I have a couple of little light bulbs going off, but I want to, yes, let's dig into um I could not agree more with the it's unfortunate, that with a very important movement, came a lot of, riffraff that didn't belong, that,
Mhm,
that just tried to ride that wave, and that is really, really unfortunate. But I think it also speaks to one recommendation that I have for anybody, who is uncomfortable with anything, whether it's sexual or some boundary getting
mhm,
crossed. I really, both of us really want to encourage our listeners, like, speak up, set your boundaries. Nobody in the world will set your boundaries for you. And what
mhm,
I have learned in my life is if you're not clear about those boundaries, then people will just keep testing them. Like, oh, well, that seemed okay. Okay, so let's keep moving, push forward, push more. And so I really like in even in those examples of really the both sides of the Me Too movement, the legit ones and the not legit ones.
mhm,
Like I wish for, for everybody's sake, like, why didn't you speak up earlier? Because like this is now like hindering you, that you didn't
mhm,
speak up, or in the um in the occasions where there are lies about it. Again, like nothing was reported, but now it's like, do you believe this or not? It becomes so messy, and so you want to nip it in the bud. You
mhm,
always, if you want to just think about it in a different light, you always want to stand up for yourself, right? Like
mhm,
you wouldn't want to see somebody else getting bullied or being cornered or put in a weird, uncomfortable situation. Why do you allow yourself
mhm,
to be a part of that? And so, I have a such you won't believe this, or yeah, I don't think you'll believe this, but this is just one of the life anecdotes that I've collected in my world. But um, I, as a woman who has navigated the majority, pretty much a man's world, I've
mhm,
always been in these, surrounded by men in my departments, or working in the construction field or whatever. So I get exposed to like all of it, right? And but I can confidently say, like, I have never been harassed. Uh, I have had many opportunities where things could have gone very wrong, but
Mhm.
I have always been able to like nip it in the bud immediately. But I want to
Mhm.
share this story because even though it didn't impact me, I regret not speaking up sooner because it would have prevented it affecting others.
Mhm.
Here's the story. So have you watched How I Met Your Mother?
Mhm. I mean,
Yes.
I didn't watch
So
it start to finish, but yes, we watched
okay.
here and there.
Have you ever seen the episode about the naked man?
I don't think so. I'll
You'll
have to
have to
look at it.
watch
We'll
it
have
after
to
this.
link it here.
Okay, so the concept of the naked man is it's this guy who essentially he um in a date with the girl, when she's, like, in the bathroom freshening up or whatever, uh, basically his move is just to, like, strip naked. And it 1 out of 3, like, in this episode basically said yes. So the first 2 were like, "What the get the hell out," blah, blah, blah. The second one, "What the hell? Like, why the hell are you naked? Like, what kind of expectation?" And then the third one was like, okay." And so that was the premise of the episode. And here's how it relates to my real life. So, in one company that I was working for many years ago, there was this guy who I get disgusted thinking about him. He had a crush on me, and I was friendly, as I am with
Mhm.
everybody. And unfortunately, like he was like, "How do I get an in with her?" And he saw that I loved tea, and I had like this tea collection in my office, and so that was like the way that was his like commonality with me. And so
Mhm.
he started visiting my office and like having tea time with me in the afternoon. And so, like, we were acquaintances. I wouldn't call him a friend. And I've gone to the gym a few times with him. We've went on some bike rides because he was like a very outdoorsy, active guy, and I'm
Mhm.
like, oh, yeah, I could use a partner in motivation and stuff like that. Um, and but I remember like starting to see that he was like kind of into me and
Mhm.
trying to he was kind of becoming flirty and all of that BS. And one time, I always worked really late, and he knew that that's like the way to like have an extra conversation with me is like I'm always working late, that he can
Mhm.
stop by my office. Well, one time he stopped by, and well, he was completely naked from head to toe. He was naked. And there was somebody working downstairs, but I was the only person upstairs, and I have this naked man in my doorway. And I was so flabbergasted and surprised, like, "Is this happening?" And I was like and unfortunately, like, the reaction at the moment, I, like, burst out, like, in this, like, nervous laugh, but I was like, "Dude, get out. Like, what are you
Yeah.
doing?" And so he, instead of leaving, like, he basically did like a run. He did like a marathon, like several rounds of running around naked upstairs. And I was like, dude, like, I said, I'm gonna call Luke, this guy who was working downstairs. I'm like, I'm gonna call Luke to come over here, like, get out. And only like on the, I don't know, fourth time or something like that, he actually like went away and got dressed and like went for his run or whatever. And I was so shocked that that happened, and I was really upset at myself for not being more, like, enraged in the moment
Mhm.
because, number 1, it was so disrespectful. Number 2, he knew that I was in a relationship, in a happy one. He was in a relationship at that time too.
Obviously
So
not happy.
nope. And he had a wonderful wife, but he was the problem. But in any case, like, so that happened to me. And after I like got through my emotions and I was like really, really PO'd, the following day I approached him and I was like, that will never happen again. And if you thought that we're friends, like any sort of opportunities of friendship have ended. Do not
Mhm.
contact me. Do not like, yes, we'll work together. I'll acknowledge you for business purposes, but you're dead to me. And so he is so annoying. Like he kept his distance for a while, but one time he like approached me and he was like, "Oh, it really like take to heart what you said and like yeah, I respect that decision and blah blah blah." And it didn't mean it
Yeah.
honestly
You've already
it didn't mean shit
yeah.
because listen here. So I moved on with my life because I like didn't let this get uncomfortable. It didn't impact me, so I moved on. But that's where the mistake is. So time goes by. I don't even remember how much time was it, like a year or whatever, but I remember somebody approached me, she wasn't new anymore, but an employee approached me about this guy um, doing the same thing to her. So
Mm.
they were just friends. They were working in the same department. He invited her for a barbecue. She came over for a barbecue, and she's on the I don't know picking something up on the grill, whatever. She turns around and he's naked, head to toe. Like that was his
Oh
move.
my
Is like just
gosh.
fully naked. She was so like flabbergasted and disgusted, and she left immediately. And so she tells me about this story, and I'm like, "Oh my god, like I believe you because this happened to me." And so I share my story with her, and I don't remember if it was her. I think it was when I shared my story. Like I don't remember how we found out, but there was a third person that
Oh
he did
my
that to in the company,
gosh.
and she actually went along with it. Like they did have a little fling,
Mm.
but when I approached her and I'm like, did you know that this happened to both of us? And when she like their fling was over, but she was so disgusted with like, oh, it wasn't like a special thing. It was like that's his move. And so like the three of us like we kind of ganged up and like we were a support team for each other. But my lesson here was like I needed to report it immediately
Mhm.
because I basically took the approach of like, well, I'm not going to let it impact me. I showed my boundaries and I'm moving on. But he obviously like has this nature in him that he repeats this habit, and so if it's not dealt with, I should have gone to HR and reported him. So
Yeah.
that's my takeaway is like not only just standing up for yourself, like that's step one is don't allow anything to happen as much as you can control it, but also speak up if something did happen to you, because even if it didn't turn into something disastrous on your watch, it might on the next person if the people aren't contained.
Exactly. And I think something that we can, because like you, I mean, outside of this situation, but like you, I was never really a victim of any like sexual harassment. There was two incidences. One was he was a he was on the sales team, and I'm not super tall, but
Mhm.
I feel like that's like an authority, like a power that men in general have is like
Mm,
when they're taller, like I can
mm,
tower over you. And
mm,
this person was exceptionally tall. And
mhm,
I remember one time he came into my office. I don't even remember what it was for. And just like as a female, I feel like you kind of get spidey senses every once, like you get them, right? And like
mhm,
I don't know
mhm,
for me, like I don't get them very often, but when I do get them, like I kind of listen, like
mhm,
the gut feeling is like, this is not a situation I want to be in. And
mhm,
I remember him coming into my office and shutting the door. And I instantly was like, I heard him out and I like
mhm.
slowly made my way to like get the door open. And this probably, I mean, by slowly, I mean, I think it took like 30 minutes to like naturally get to a
Oh,
place to
wow.
open the
Mhm,
door.
mhm, mhm,
Luckily, nothing happened, but I did report it. I said something to HR. I said, nothing happened. I just want you to know that this did happen. And a couple months later, he had cornered another female, very
mhm,
similar.
mhm,
Definitely was not sitting in a leadership role like I was. Like she was newer to the company and she had said something to HR. And
mhm,
because they had already had this, notation that he had done this
mhm,
to another female, unfortunately,
Mhm.
to a leader within the company, it held some clout for this other female.
Mhm.
And the other situation, I never had any issues with him directly, but separate individual, he some gal came to the HR department, just said like she was claiming sexual harassment. However, she couldn't like, not that you have to give details, but when asked like what happened, what made you
Mhm.
uncomfortable, like to
Mhm.
try to get it documented, she
Mhm.
either wouldn't or couldn't give details.
Mhm.
They did document there was a conversation, there was quote unquote claims of sexual harassment. Come to find out, he left the company because he no call, no showed one too many times.
Mhm.
But he ended up going to prison for underage, I don't know what the like
Oh,
legal term was,
jeez.
but
Yeah,
basically
yeah,
for
yeah.
like intimacy with an underage person. And so just I think that there's never, you don't necessarily have to go after someone, but documenting stuff is important. Even if you say
Mhm.
like I don't want to like, I don't know, press charges or whatever, getting it documented, because if it is an isolated incident, great, we move on, you set your boundaries. But if it is not an isolated incident, you may help protect someone else that brings this
Yeah,
situation up
yeah.
in any sense of the matter, right? Like if we look at it from the other side of it, if a female's like this person sexually assaulted me or sexually harassed me, and they've been with the company for X amount of years, never had a merit on their or a ding on their record, it may protect that person as well from,
Mhm.
these
Mhm.
kind of abusive claims. So you don't necessarily have to create massive rifts, but documentation is always important.
For sure. I wanna touch on a kind of, an unfair reality that men have to, like, witness as a part of life. And it is, like, basically for a guy, um obviously, like, guys test the waters of, like,
Mhm,
does this girl like me? Da, da. It all takes a risk of, like,
mhm.
engaging, asking the question, right? And it's so unfair that, like, what women generally talk about, like, they call men creepers, and
Mhm.
but just for, like, if they were approached by a sexy, handsome man that they're like, "Ooh,
Exactly.
yeah," then it's fine. But just because they found them repulsive, now they're a creeper,
I
and
agree.
it's so unfair. And I do want to, like, shine light here, because I do see it. I do feel really, really bad for the men. And but here's the takeaway that I would give. I think workplaces, I think they are, as much as you want to try to avoid it, like, they are a very, very natural place for people to meet, for couples to meet. As
Yeah.
you know, this is how I met my husband. Like, when you're, like, spending so much
Yep.
time at work and you're solving problems together, like, chemistry can very much form from this.
Mhm.
But and so, like, taking chances on, like, asking somebody out, I don't think that they're out of place, unless, like, there's a handbook rule against it or something like that. But just like with everything, read the room, read
Yeah.
the feedback. Like, if there isn't, like, you took your chance, but if you were totally misreading it, then end it here, and stop the pursuit. That's where, it's easy to then get that creeper
Mhm.
label, is like, if you keep on pursuing after you were shut down. And, if you were shut down, like, now you're harassing. Like, if you
Yeah.
are like, "Oh, give me another chance," dude, like, just, if a person says no, no is no in all
Yeah.
situations. And so,
I agree.
mhm,
I agree, but I think to that point, you also like you mentioned like if you don't have an employee handbook, I strongly suggest you have one for any of our listeners. Uh,
yes.
please have one, even if it's just a baseline. And there should be something around, relationships, because I agree. When you spend a lot of time around people, things naturally happen. But when it's documented on when this happens, how do we handle it? then there's no, like you said, favoritism. You avoid that and saying like, well, this couple gets to do this, but this couple doesn't. And it's like, nope,
Mhm.
this is the rule and this is how we move forward.
Mhm.
Um, but yes, I completely agree with you um on the fronts of men also have it unfairly.
Mhm.
And it's just it's it's it it is, I don't know. Unfortunately, it is what it is. I think on the flip side, again, playing just devil's advocate in, um, as a female, I have autonomy to dress how I want, right? And how I dress in my personal life is very different than how I dress in my professional life.
Mhm.
And I firmly believe, didn't we say that some of our listeners wanted some juicy stuff and disagreements?
Yes.
You
Yes.
might get it here.
All right.
Um, I believe that you are kind of your own walking billboard or a marketer for yourself. And so
Mhm. Mhm.
when it comes to females, yes, you have the autonomy to dress the way you want. Uh, I am a married woman that also wants to have a professional career at a high level in the C suite. When I go out to dinners or I go to meet clients, I choose not to wear things that are going to accentuate my cleavage or
Mhm.
that are going to show more inches of my leg than are necessary. Because I also believe that women, when we talk about men getting an unfair, like creepy vibe,
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
also think that women can put men in those awkward positions by
Mhm.
what they're
Mhm.
potentially
Mhm.
selling, right? Like,
Mhm.
I know if I go to
Absolutely.
dinner with my husband, I might wear something a little racy, but I also know that
Mhm.
I'm going home with him that night. If I'm going to have dinner with a client and, I have a low cut top or whatever, like I'm sending some sort of message to them. And unfortunately, I probably am going to get some hate and shame for this. But you're sending some sort of message, and the message isn't like my body, my rules. Like when you send that message of like, here's all of my cleavage, and you leave little to imagine, you're kind of walking into a situation that maybe you don't want to be in. Um, and again,
I
I think it comes down to
Yeah.
boundaries. Like, yes,
Mhm.
if you want to show some cleavage, that is your right. But again, know your audience.
I agree with you. And I don't. Yeah, I absolutely agree with you, and I know that some people might get uncomfortable with what we're saying, but we're not saying that like basically if you dress sexy, you're asking to get harassed. No,
Correct. Not
but
saying
you
that.
also, now we're not girls anymore, we're women now. We also understand how men are wired
Mhm.
and what distracts them, you know? So if you are it's also about how you carry yourself
Mhm.
in how you're dressed. If you are like if you just have really big tits and you can't do much
Yeah.
about it, like, well, yes, you can. You can accentuate them or hide them. Like there are
Right.
some controls, but there are limited controls perhaps with the bigger bazungas, um, or bazingas. I don't know, but I do like now being a woman and understanding just like how a man is wired. And if you are like you're trying to have this like serious conversation with them, but you're doing everything to just to get their brain and in a
Mhm.
their blood flow in a different part of their body, like
Yeah.
then you are definitely not helping the situation. and
Correct.
and I want to be again like very very mindful of, because I do have a dear friend of mine who was like she was harassed by a client, and she was just sexy in general, like
Yeah.
she can't control it, and she was like one of the top performers of the company and stuff like that. Um and like she had no way of like there was nothing she could do to avoid it, to do
Mhm.
like she could have been dressed in a bag, but this client was just like so in love with her and like was so excited to
Mhm.
see her in person and was like very, very touchy with her and things like that. So I'm we're not saying that like that women invite these things, but women are also they're not blind. They know how men operate. And
Mhm.
part of that, like putting together presentation and the package is like, what am I trying to get out of this meeting? Like,
Mhm.
so yeah, dress appropriately. I do agree with that. I do want to be a little bit of a devil's advocate on the dressing point because I've been also a victim of just like girl hate in the past.
Mhm.
And like, so I agree with you. I always, you know, I love like wearing suit, like blazers and like suit pants, and
Mhm.
like I just love that look like that. But I have like I don't wear oversized stuff. Like my stuff has always been form fitting,
Yeah.
and I remember actually like somebody bringing that up in my early years to HR of like, and my boss was like talking to me, and he's like, um, and you dress too sexy for work. And I'm like, okay, whoa, okay, let's extrapolate. What are you talking about? Like, what specific
Mhm.
outfits? Because I'm very mindful about how I dress. Like, and he's like, oh, I don't know, just like yeah, some girls mentioned that they didn't like, and I'm like, you don't even know what problem you're bringing up because like I want to know like specific things
Yeah.
like what like is it a cleavage thing, is it a skirt thing, like pinpoint me to the problem and I will
Mhm.
solve it,
Yeah.
but it's like, oh no, just like some people just think you basically look too good and it's like, I'm
It's like
sorry,
that goes
like
back to your whole conversation about your client of like some people I look at some girls and I'm like, "Damn girl, you are hot. I wish I could have a piece of that." But you can't, and honestly, I have seen more hate or harassment girl to girl than actual, like, sexual harassment
yes,
from a man to a woman.
yes,
They
yes,
both
yes,
are
yes,
relevant, they both
yeah.
exist, but I actually in my professional career, I have actually personally been or witnessed harassment from females more than males.
Mhm, mhm. Yep,
So
I believe it because, women are vicious.
yes, they are absolutely
Absolutely.
vicious. Um, so we've talked about kind of the responsibility to speak up again. Like we see so often people stay silent because they're worried about, retaliation or being dramatic or losing opportunities or not being believed. I truly think that this comes back to delivery. How you deliver the the responsibility to speak up matters so much. And I do also acknowledge that there are situations where it's probably not safe to speak up or that,
Mhm,
retaliation or labels or opportunities lost is a real thing. I do want to
mhm.
acknowledge that, but I I I think a lot of times where this comes up is in your delivery. If you come at it from a place um of
Kind of setting your boundaries, right?
yeah, right. Like if you come from a place, if you're setting your boundaries and saying like this happened, I want to get it documented. I want to be very clear that this is not okay. And the situation that you encountered very inappropriate. You should be able to go to work and not see a naked man. Also, side note, there is nothing attractive about a naked man. I'm sorry. Like a naked female is attractive. The female body is attractive. To our male listeners out there, please stop revealing yourself. No woman wants to see a naked man. But setting your boundaries is a skill, not a weakness. And how you deliver that boundary is so important. Like if you deliver it in an aggressive way, it's probably going to get met with defensiveness and then no
Mhm,
one's winning in the situation. So,
mhm.
um
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to touch on, yeah, I kind of want to ride that train on speaking up and setting boundaries, and not just, we touched on sexual harassment, but just in any environment or situation that makes you uncomfortable. And I want to bring up language as a part of the discussion, because I am terrible at this. Like
Hmm.
um, I've cussed so much in this podcast, and I really, that was not the intention, but you're not objecting, so I guess I'm pushing the envelope. So, but I do want to talk about language. Like so naturally I am a person who cusses, and because to me cuss words really do not have any gravity. Like, it's the intention behind cuss words, that's where I'm really paying attention. Or if I get offended, it's because I'm like seeing the real intention
Hmm.
behind the words. But words themselves alone, no. Like, I do not get offended by them. Um and so however, I am I want to be mindful of those who are uncomfortable. And there are people in this world who are very uncomfortable about the specific language, and or maybe aggressive language from superiors, that might, where they might not feel safe, because they might think like, oh, well, maybe that means that, like, I might get yelled at one day or
Hmm.
whatever. So I do want to talk about language a little bit. And the way, I guess, in my life, I'm always on my best behavior when I'm kind of getting to know a
Hmm.
client, a workplace, whatever, a group of people. And when I can kind of assess their, I guess, tolerance of just being a normal person, I
Hmm.
will I can show more of my true self if I know that they are more of like, hey, I'm just a guy, I'm trying to solve this problem, and you're
Hmm.
just a girl who's helping me. Then I basically then strip the other, then I can be more blunt and like, oh my god, this is
Hmm.
a big fucking problem.
Hmm.
I can kind of be more comfortable. But I always do that, like, assessment, like, can they handle it, or hearing them cuss the first time before I unleash mine. Because, like, I have offended so many people throughout my life in having like a very salty language. And one recommendation that one of my really crappy bosses gave me, but this was such a good recommendation, and it was, being mindful about what you say in front of others. What one may find funny or acceptable today may not be true tomorrow. And I have tried to carry that with me
Hmm.
in, like, really, like, oh, I do need to be more mindful. And yeah, I might be BSing with this person here, but then there's a bystander here, and now they're witnessing and they're a part of it. So I do very much recommend for people to address when somebody's language is making you uncomfortable,
Hmm.
or somebody's tactics, like yelling or something like that. And I, unfortunately, the name escapes me, but I follow this one podcaster. She's this badass, like, female business leader of some sort.
Hmm.
And she was talking about, like, this wonderful way of, like, when you have somebody who's really toxic and how they address problems, and they, like, start screaming, and, like, it doesn't matter that
Hmm.
they're not yelling at you, but now you're a part of the yelling match, you're witnessing all of that tension and anger and all of that. And she talked about how and this was somebody at her company, like, earlier that week or something like that, but she talked about how she was like, stopped him very politely, like, "Excuse me, like, I understand you're very frustrated here, and I understand things did not go your way, but in this company, we do not represent our emotions in this way. So if you need a moment to cool down and to be
Hmm.
alone with your feelings, please take a moment, and I'll be here to continue the conversation when you're ready, but I'm not gonna be a part of this." And there's something so powerful in that, in being able to kind of set that standard for yourself. And I
Hmm.
think that you really only need need to say that once, like, that's a very powerful way of, like, number 1, the person probably feels so like, "Oh, why did I unleash?" Like, that's
Mhm.
bringing my own baggage, into a professional workforce, but there's just something so beautiful about, speaking up and stating your boundaries, that I just want to encourage all of our listeners to
Yeah, for
not be
sure.
shy about that.
I'm kind of in your boat too. Like I grew up in a military family and then I
Mhm.
married a soldier. And so
Mhm.
I don't know, some of these were like I could hang with the best of them. Sometimes it's embarrassing, but it's just like to me they're words. Like they're just another
Mhm. Mhm.
vocabulary word.
Mhm.
They don't really carry any weight for me. And so when
Mhm.
people
Mhm.
also say them, I'm also just so I don't know, just accustomed to them that it
Mhm.
doesn't even bother me. So, but yes, you're right. Like when I'm working with clients, when I am meeting new clients, when I'm engaging in even just new relationships, friendships, you're learning those boundaries and it's okay to say that, this is my boundary. I'm not comfortable with these words
Mhm.
um and then it is incumbent upon the person to either, you know, change that behavior or move on if they can't respect those boundaries.
Indeed.
Yeah. Well, we have
Alrighty.
talked about quite a bit when it comes to this. I feel like we still have so much that we could do a second episode on
Like,
um kind of HR. I mean, a lot of the things that we wanted to talk about I think are still relevant, but we probably should start to land
land
the
this.
plane.
Agreed.
Um And so I think that it's important for our listeners to know that workplace harassment is never okay. I think coming from a place of being able to address situations, very clearly communicate your boundaries, and I would say even come from a place of understanding, like the situations that I have been in when they've been brought to the table to try to find resolution in I don't know, calm, cool, collected manner. Most parties involved want to reconcile it or understand that they did wrong and want to move forward. There are situations, obviously, like you mentioned, that people just don't learn from their mistakes.
Mhm.
Um, but, if you hear anything from us, we want you to hear that toxic workplaces are not okay. If you can't change them or set boundaries around them, please find a way to exit yourself or remove yourself from the
Yes.
situation. Sexual harassment and inappropriate conduct are not acceptable. Again, if you can't address them or clearly put in place your own boundaries, you need to exit yourself from the situation. You have a responsibility to speak up. We've mentioned how you speak up and your delivery of that speak up will change the
Mhm.
landscape of the outcome, and that it's really okay to have boundaries at work and it's okay to clearly communicate those boundaries. Um, this will not be the last time we talk about this, but we hope that you find value in something that we talked about today. And for those leaders that are listening, if you do not have an employee handbook, please put one in place, at least start to get the framework in place. And with that, we need a question. This is not necessarily like about us, but it's kind of a fun one. But what is one office tradition you would immediately cancel?
Unnecessary meetings. That came too quickly, and that's not a tradition, it's just a habit. I hate meetings that don't have a purpose,
Mhm.
just because they're scheduled, like, does not mean that we need to waste time to show up, but you probably want something more traditions, what? Like,
No, it could be anything. I think that that's totally fair. I'm also on
okay.
board with like unnecessary meetings or more people at the meetings than is necessary.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
one, I guess tradition, I maybe not the right word, but one that I would cancel is that you have to make friends. Like, and I feel like I'm in this weird like
Mm,
generation gap of like, my parents really have that mindset of we go to work for a paycheck to then come home and live the lives that we want to live. And then
mhm,
you've got the generation behind me that's like, we want this work life balance and we want
mhm,
to make friends. And this
mhm,
culture here at work should be this culture that we love to come into. And I feel like it has to be somewhere in the middle. But I really wish that we could ditch this like pressure of we have to be friends um and create this like, I don't know, this like the outings, the pressure around outings or whatever.
mm, mhm, mhm.
I've been a part of organizations where, and some organizations it works really well, and kudos to you. But I've talked so often that my free time is very limited, and my
Mhm,
my circle is very tight. Like who I choose to spend my time with is very tight. Nothing against the people that I work with or have worked
mhm,
with, but
mhm.
if I have free time, I don't feel like I should feel pressure to go to this like event
Uh,
or be
uh,
shamed if I don't want to go to the
yes,
event and be
yes.
friends or what have you.
This is so yes, I so agree with you, and this has been really like more of an active problem in my life when I actually worked for like an employer, like I had to go and also before the COVID days where I had to like show up physically to a place. Since like the remote days and having clients all over, all over the country, like it's been so nice not to have to deal with that, but you just
Mhm.
now I have a recollection of like my prior problems, and I this is such a relevant thing to me as well because as well I see my coworkers as like acquaintances,
Mhm.
and my friends are my friends, and I spend time with my friends, and I have done too many years of like uh the feeling of pressure of going out with certain people and then being like, I really do not enjoy any part of this, and I
Mhm.
don't want to be like invited again. And like I this has been like such a like I have talked with my husband for many years of like, how do I get out of this? And like his solution is always like, oh, he's gonna kill me for throwing him under the bus, but like kind of like avoiding it, like yeah, just say yeah, agree to it, but just make sure that it never comes through to fruition.
For sure, yeah.
And I'm like, I can't do that because to me, like I'm a very honest, transparent person. Like I can't lead them on. Like if I'm saying yeah, like that means that they're expecting at one point I'm gonna have to agree to this. Like, and I
Mhm.
just can't like in my crazy world, like I guess like I need for people to understand like where like I don't want to hide behind a facade, and so I would
Mhm.
rather people truly understand where they are in the priority of my life than
Yeah.
not, because it's not nothing bad. It's just like I'm very close with my close friends, and I just try to keep a professional distance with everybody else,
Yeah.
so I agree with you. I haven't had to think about that problem for a while. But also another light that I discovered about myself is the environment and the people. It can be subjective because I felt more defensive of like I don't want to hang out with anybody. I don't want to spend time with anybody in workplaces where leadership was really bad. Everybody was pitted against each other, and there was just
Mhm.
like everybody just hated showing up to work. And I remember like experiencing many years of that. Many years of that, I lost faith in humanity. I became a bigger introvert. I'm like, I need people to leave me the f alone. And
Mhm.
then I joined this amazing organization where like everybody was like they were such good people, and it was a nonprofit, and so we're all doing like good things on the ground, but like they picked just the best caliber of people. And that was the place where I was like, maybe I should give a chance to some people, and I kind of showed more interest in the people where I'm like, I want to see them more outside of work. I want them to
Mhm.
be a part of my life. And so, you know, you will get these like instances once in a while where you're like, oh wow, this is a gift, you know, that came through a workplace. But for the most part, I agree with you. It's like, oh, I'm here to do my job. I keep a
Yeah.
professional distance and not complicate things more than they need to be, you know?
Exactly. Yeah, and I think
Yeah.
there's this line of like, um, I don't know. I love not in a discriminatory way, but all of my employees right now are gals.
Mhm, mhm,
That's just
mhm,
how the cookie has been cut. That's
mhm.
not even that's the wrong way, but you understand what I'm saying.
Yep.
Um, but I truly adore all of my gals. They're spread across the US,
Mhm,
and so it makes it difficult to come together, but you can still be interested in, who you work with and, like,
mhm,
have buy-in of, like, "What's going on? How is
mhm,
your
mhm.
daughter?" One of my
Absolutely.
gals are pregnant, so it's like, "How are you feeling?"
Mhm,
And also feel like I don't have to go have drinks with you guys tonight, or I
mhm,
don't have to
mhm,
go to this event tomorrow and be shamed for it. Like both
mhm.
can exist. Like we can
Yep,
have a
yep, yep.
friendly relationship and I
Mhm.
can be invested in who you are and what's going on in your life while also not spending my free time with you,
Yeah,
if that makes sense.
yeah, totally.
So, well,
Alrighty.
that was a fun one. So, we will see you
It was
next
indeed.
time, friends. Thank you so much for
Thank you.
tuning in.
Appreciate it. Okay. Human resources is not just about rules, it is about responsibility. Companies have a responsibility to create safe, respectful workplaces. Leaders have a responsibility to act when something is wrong. Employees have a responsibility to speak up when they can, set the boundaries, and support one another. Culture is not what we say it is, culture is what we allow. If this episode resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share with anybody who can benefit from these discussions. Thank you for going past the balance sheet with us. Until next time.